to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Thank you for the invite. Happy to be here.
Okay, so you're really fascinating because Fresno brought you from Oklahoma City. Tell us how that happened.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. So I really never thought that I would leave Oklahoma City. I've been there the last 27 years. So I, finished high school there, went to college there. I had a family there. I have family members that still live there. So, I gave the Oklahoma City Police Department half my life when I left. I left at 44 after 22 years of service, so I was eligible for retirement. But interesting story, when I went to the FBI National Academy, which is leadership training for law enforcement, actually my roommate was somebody from the Central Valley here in law enforcement. So I was one of the only people from Oklahoma, so all the people I hung out with were Central Valley law enforcement leaders. 3 or 4 chiefs from the Central Valley.
Wow, and they all liked you? They're like, you'd be great with them?
I don't know if they liked me or not, but we hung out for 10 weeks. This is a 10-week course, so we literally lived in Quantico, Virginia for 10 weeks. And I got to be pretty close to them. So, fast forward, I'm a deputy chief in Oklahoma City, and great job, great opportunity. But Fresno opened up, and it really seemed like a good fit. So I went threw my hat in the ring, and was selected for the position, and Mayor Jerry Dyer had a lot to do with that. He and I really synced. I can tell you that he and I have very, very similar police philosophies. And
was he there as well, or for that 10-week?
No. This was,
Okay.
he was, mayor-elect at the time.
Okay.
But we had some long conversations over the phone, and basically, convinced me to go ahead and take the job. And a year and a half later, definitely was the right decision for my family and I. The job's difficult. There's a lot to do here. But that's one of the reasons why I selected Fresno. And there were a lot of major city jobs open at that time. Miami, Fort Worth, Dallas were all open. But this is the only one I put in for because I felt that this was a place that had a lot of potential, has a lot of potential, and there's also a lot of need here. So when you find a place where there's a lot of need, it's a huge opportunity to do great things. And I was really interested in just staying here a significant amount of time so I can make this police department and the city better. So those are my goals, and I mean, they seem kind of far-fetched, but I think we're on the right track to getting those things done.
So how did your family feel about that? That had to be a big move. I mean, how is your wife? They just were like, okay, we support.
No, I have young children, so they didn't really want to make the move, but now that they've been here a little bit over a year, they really like California, and there's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, California is a very beautiful state, obviously. Fresno is perfectly located, so you can afford a nice house here, and the cost of living is lower than other areas, but yet you're only 2.5 hours from the bay, and you're only an hour and 50 minutes from the beach, and you're only 45 minutes to an hour from the mountains, and you're only 3 hours from Disneyland. I mean, all those things are great. So we really enjoy it, and I'm glad that this is my home now.
How was the job different in Oklahoma City, and how were the people different? Were there a lot of gangs like you deal with here, or was it just completely different?
So I can tell you that every major city is experiencing similar things, especially after the whole defunding movement and COVID really changed policing. Some things for the better, some things are a little bit more difficult. In Oklahoma City, it's a larger city. It's about now I think 670,000 people, and we actually have more homicides there than we do here in Fresno.
Wow. Okay.
But in Oklahoma City, we only have about an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 gang members. So here in Fresno, we have an estimated 20,000 to 25,000 gang members. So the gang culture is a lot more prevalent here, but violent crime went up for a couple of years just nationwide in all the big cities. But right now we're actually experiencing a lot of success in areas like recruiting and reducing violent crime. Last time I checked, shootings are down 25% from last year, and homicides are down 30% from last year. So those are plus our recruiting is actually being very successful. We have let's see, about 83 vacancies, but we have 118 people in the police academy. So we've kind of turned the ship around and we're heading the right direction.
And how was it, I mean, and this might sound like a weirder, you can answer however you want to, because a lot of people here probably thought, okay, well, I'm going to get to become the chief of police, I'm next in line, and then they brought you from another city. Was that a little awkward when you came in? And
no, so it's not awkward in the sense that, you know, a lot of cities really, you know, to make changes within the police department, sometimes they go outside. And I'm very fortunate where I have 4 very competent deputy chiefs who are doing a great job. They make my job a lot easier than it could be. But, you know, it's kind of a national practice. I mean, a lot of large cities look outside, especially if you want to make changes. And, you know, part of the issue is that, you know, Mayor Dyer, when he was Chief Dyer, was here for a long time. So you kind of get set in your ways, for example, and he had a lot of success, you know, especially in the 2010s, you know, and 11 and through that decade, in reducing violent crime. But then you get used to doing things a certain way. He also brought a lot of innovation to the police department, like the Real-Time Crime Center, something that I still have. But what I bring is a totally different perspective and no history here, which is an advantage. You know, when I come here, I come to do great things. And I look at things in a very sophisticated but yet very simplistic manner. If something's working, then we're going to do more of it. If something isn't working, then we're going to stop. So I was pleasantly surprised when I got here to the Fresno Police Department that I, without a doubt, found a lot more things that were working very well and were best practices nationwide. But there are also a few things that I was able to change where I would ask the question, why do we do it that way? And the response tends to be, well, we've always done it that way. Well, that's not a modern police philosophy. We've always done it that way. You have to evaluate everything that you're doing and make it better. So I've been able to make a lot of great changes that are turning things around. That's why our recruiting is better. That's why we're reducing violent crime. That's why, you know, we're branching off into other areas that aren't, you know, historically police jobs, but we're also assessing things. For example, crisis intervention. Should the police department be the first responder on somebody in crisis? Well, not necessarily. You know, if no crime's been committed and somebody is in mental crisis, shouldn't that be a mental health clinician? Or somebody that provides. So
we are working more on towards that.
Absolutely.
When there's that 911 call to be like, who should come? We're not going to send everybody.
That's exactly what we're working on right now, and
that would save taxpayer money, right?
You know, mental health is expensive, so we're gonna have to pay for services.
It'd be redistributing where it's okay.
But should it be? Does it have to be a police officer every time? Well, the response to that is no, it doesn't.
Right.
And there's other cities that are doing great things. One example is Denver, Colorado. Has had a model that they call STARS, and that was actually implemented right during the pandemic, and they've had a lot of success. So guess what? We're going to go visit their model and see what type of alternate response model they have for mental health cases and calls where it doesn't have to be the police department. So I do like technology. I do like innovation. I love new things. Some people don't like change, or they have they struggle with change. I love change. I get bored really easy, so I do like new things and I like innovation. So I think that's what I bring. I bring a fresh set of eyes and a different perspective. Like I said before, Mayor Dyer and I happen to be very close. We're good friends. You know, I consider him a mentor, somewhat of a father figure. But our perspectives are different. You know, and I look at things just a little bit different. And he also understands that his era in policing was very successful. But the world's changed.
Very much.
The world is not the same. Law enforcement is not the same. The laws are not the same. The ability to keep people in jail is not the same.
Exactly.
And all that's changed. So that's my reality. So I have to adapt to those changes, and I can't keep doing things the same way as they were done before.
What do you think about that? About the laws changing, and you know, now it's really hard to keep people incarcerated, it seems like, and there's just so many reoffenders, and
Yeah.
how do we navigate through
Right.
that?
Well, I think one of the issues that's happening here, because Fresno, I've noticed, happens to be a very political town, and you bring a police chief to the picture who's not political. I'm not political at all. As a matter of fact,
That's probably a plus, I imagine.
Well, it's different because being political does not help me do my job better.
Right,
Being
that's-
political immediately alienates half the population, and I'm not in a position to do that. Not only that, sometimes politics gets in the way. And the reason I bring that up is that, a lot of people, when you're talking politics and crime, they think in extremisms.
Right.
Okay? So lock everybody up and throw away the key. Well, that's not a solution. That's
Right.
that's not an equitable solution that's gonna fix things. We're not gonna be able to arrest ourselves out of the situation, especially in California. And then having no consequences whatsoever. Well, that's not the solution either, because we have that now, and there's a lot of violent crime. So the solution is a balanced approach. The solution is making sure that we hold violent offenders accountable, but then have the proper resources to address drug addiction, mental health, youth who are experiencing trauma and adverse childhood experiences. That's the solution. The issue here in California is that nobody can agree on which way to do it. So as a police chief, I'm kind of stuck in the middle, trying to form those partnerships with great community resources that we already have and who are doing a great job. Instead of me trying to duplicate that, well, I'm going to support them. There's a lot of great nonprofits, a lot of community service providers that know the material better than I do. So why not partner with them and try to find some solutions? And that's what we're trying to do.
What do you think about our homeless population right now? I mean, I feel like it's really gotten out of control. It's really gotten out there. What can we do?
Yeah, so that is directly connected to the services or the lack thereof for mental health issues. A lot of our homeless population have mental health issues. Some of them have just health issues. Some of them are homeless because of their financial situation. Some of them are homeless because California is a very expensive place to buy a home. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. But one thing that we don't have is we don't have long-term care for drug addiction and mental health issues, and that's a big deal. We're experiencing a new, different type of drug, something that was different than the 60s and the 70s, and meth in particular. I can tell you that methamphetamine used to be a party drug. It's not anymore. Okay, it's not the same type of meth. They're making it quite differently, and the effects on individuals are long-term effects, sometimes permanent effects on their mental health. So a party drug, hey, I'm going to do a drug and I'm going to have a good time and then be great tomorrow. Well, this is something different. So the methamphetamine that's being smuggled into California and a lot of other states is called P2p Meth, and it's being chemically altered. It's not being cooked with pseudoephedra or pseudoephedrine, which is the old way of making it. So literally, it's creating violence, paranoia, hallucinations in individuals who have maybe minor mental health issues. So now they're major and permanent health issues. So it's really destroying that population. And according to the literature I've read, people who are addicted to meth have about a 3 to 7% chance of recovering. So think about that.
Wow, really?
So
Wow.
they have a 93% chance of not recovering. So
For the rest of their life. That's interesting. I never knew that.
yeah, so that's part of the issue, is that we need more services for mental health issues. Another thing that we need to consider is the fact that when I came here to Fresno, there were tents of homeless people all up and down the highways. I haven't seen them for probably the better part of a year, if not more. So at least here in Fresno, California, we're doing something about it instead of ignoring the issue like other places that I've visited, where I can't believe how many homeless encampments were being ignored and just allowed to just prevail. That's a public safety issue. That's a health issue. To allow drug use, drug abuse, prostitution, human trafficking in some of these encampments, that's happening, and that's very unhealthy, obviously. So at least here in Fresno, the mayor's got an initiative where we're doing something about it. And it seems like whatever the mayor does, somebody's got to complain about it, which is
Right.
human nature. People are never going to be happy, you know. But we are doing something about it, and we're being successful. And
So what is it that we're doing?
well, we're providing services.
So we're providing more services,
providing
and
more
like
services.
each year we're getting
Right.
better than the year before, right? That we had
and
it.
there's, you know, programs that have been implemented, and I'm very happy to report, not by me. A lot of cities will make homelessness a police issue. That's not happening in Fresno. I've never been given that responsibility. The city's taking on that responsibility. That's why several hotels have been purchased. They've been renovated to give people a place to stay while they get services and while they get on their feet.
And those are really being implemented. Like people are really taking up and they're doing.
That's happening.
Because I've always heard too that sometimes the homeless people don't want that. Like sometimes they get scared to,
so that's
to
true.
do that.
And I can tell you that you know, the amount of time that homeless people accepted services was like 1 to 3% of the time. One study we did in Oklahoma City was you would have to offer services 77 times before it would be accepted one time. So we've gone from that to the last that I looked at, the numbers just yesterday was 14%. 14% of the time people are actually accepting services. With our, now when you pair us up with mental health providers and people who actually have services for the homeless, it's much higher than that. So we discovered that, hey, when a cop offers these types of services, they're not going to be accepted. But when you have a, you know, a clinician or, you know, somebody else from the community, well, then that number goes way up. So let's do that because that is more successful.
And you know about a lot of the crime happening. I know that car theft and breaking into cars has gone up. I mean, 2 months ago, my car was broken into down the street. I didn't even call up. I mean, at this point, like I kind of know the likelihood of anyone getting caught, anything happening is next to nil. And then also, I mean, nothing's really going to happen to them because it wasn't a violent crime. But I do worry about, like when you say meth and all these things, that they can lead to violence. I mean, what if I had walked up upon them? What if I put pepper spray on them and then it becomes a violent attack? At what point are we going to implement things before it gets to that point?
Well, definitely property crimes can turn into violent crimes. So you make a very good point. And I wish you would have called because there are cameras all over downtown. And when you make that phone call, we can actually pull the video, make the connection, identify that person, and then go out there and apprehend them. And in downtown, by the way, we have teams that know everybody who hangs out down here. About 6 months ago, we were getting about 24 auto burglaries per month in the Tower District.
That's where it was, yeah.
That's down to single digits. For the last month, it's down to for the last couple of months, it's down to single digits because we focused on assigning patrols designated to
Unless
that
there's
area.
people like me that didn't report it.
Right, yeah, so we'll add
So
one
I
for your
should?
case.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
like
no,
I'm trying not to.
You should report it because, you know, tracking accurate numbers and being able to ascertain what's going on in the city.
I guess so, yeah, that makes sense.
You should report it.
Well, now I know, so now everybody.
Well, hopefully you don't have to report it again, but you should.
Right. And so initially you were born in Texas.
Yeah.
And I mean, I find it really interesting. What do you think about the latest horrific shooting of all those children? How far away did you live from that?
So I was born in El Paso, Texas, and I would live there till I was 15.
So that was further.
You know, it's quite a ways.
Yeah.
It's quite a ways, but you know, it's horrific. You know, that's horrific. You know what happened in Buffalo. I was able to attend our Major City Chiefs conference in San Francisco, and the Buffalo chief was there, and you know he gave us a presentation of what happened, and it's horrific. I mean, for that to happen in Uvalde, Sandy Hook was another one. You know, where they had a greater loss of life. That's the greatest, most heinous crime that you could commit is against children. So yeah, it's terrible, and it really. You know, they're still trying to figure out what happened there. After that shooting took place, our patrol sergeants reiterated our policy, which is quite different. Bottom line, if there is an active shooter and there are hostages, people who are at risk, we're going to go in without delay. We're going to go in. And I don't want to second guess whatever happened there because we still don't have all the facts.
Well, there was a lot of fingers being pointed, but within the police force. And I know,
Right.
like you said, everyone points blame at somebody, but I know there was a lot of internal blame. So, and you seem very on it when it comes to learning from other people's mistakes and finding out good solutions. But there hasn't really been where you're like, oh, these were the mistakes, and we're not going to do that.
Well, I can tell you this is that, we do one of the biggest surprises here, positive surprises here in California is the fact that we have some of the best trained officers in the country, without a doubt. And we have to, because there's such a prevalent lawsuit happy philosophy here. And so everything you do is going to be scrutinized. So we have some of the smartest cops here. We have some of the best training in the country here. Typically, we are about a decade ahead of the South and some places in the Midwest, and just generally speaking, because we have to be. And I can tell you that we try to slow things down when we can. And if we have a hostage situation, that's a totally different ball game. If you have an individual who's held up in a house, we can wait them out as long as it takes.
Exactly.
There's no need, there's no urgency. But that is completely the opposite when there's children at risk who are the most valuable, individuals in our society. And, if I were to prioritize it, children are at the top of the list of people that we need to protect. So, if children are at risk, we're not going to wait. There's not going to be delay. We're going to have the cavalry there very quickly, and we're going to try to get there to save as many lives as we can.
Well, and that's good that you guys do a lot of proactive practices. So what is it with the police training? Like you said, there's different changes every year. What are the requirements? What are the protocols? Do they have to go to classes every year? Like, how do you make these changes in the police force?
Yeah, so the state of California really has mandated training. So there's a certain amount of hours that you have to do every 2 years, and it's pretty spelled out, pretty specific. You have to do this many hours of de-escalation, of mental health, and all these very important things. But then I get to prioritize certain training too.
Okay.
And we have an advantage here at the Fresno Police Department. We have our own regional training center. So we're always going to go above and beyond whatever the state standards are. So we're going to do the state standards because we have to do them every 2 years, a cumulative number of hours. But most of our officers are going to be way beyond that, because any great training that we can bring here, we're going to train. And we send reminders, we send bulletin points. Something happens in another place, like Uvalde, well, guess all of a sudden we're pushing out our active shooter policy out to all officers to remind them. So you have to be ahead of the curve on this one. And training is extremely important. I think the only profession that trains more than we do is maybe doctors. But it's continuous. And then you have to consider the laws here in California.
They keep changing.
They keep changing. And
do you guys go over all that too? Because I know sometimes things are like, I'm always a lot on top because I interview politicians, and a lot of times I'm like, oh, that just changed.
Yeah.
Do you guys do that where it's like, okay,
Absolutely.
This changed, guys,
Absolutely.
so now we got to come together and talk about this change?
I get bulletins, and I get kind of a heads up of some of the proposed legislation, and sometimes
because it's hard to keep up. There's
there's hundreds of proposals. Yeah.
Right.
But the ones that affect us, obviously law enforcement, those are the ones that I'm interested in. So the ones that are passed, we're always looking at them to determine, okay, which ones do we need to implement changes, and that happened last year. There was a few use of force changes that we had to immediately change policy. One example, and I forget the number, I believe it was Senate Bill 481, or maybe it was HB 481, about the militarization of police departments. So there's a certain list of equipment that is considered military grade by the definition of the state of California. A lot of the things on that list are not military. The military does not use a lot of those things, but they're considered military grade by definition here in California. So we have to keep an inventory list. We had to set up a new policy that mandated the use of those things. And the accountability is great. I don't mind the accountability. It just sometimes creates a lot of extra work. Sometimes it's unnecessary, especially if we're not actively buying military equipment from any program. We have the equipment that we need to do our jobs, and that's what we focus on.
I know you don't really get political, so don't be too political about this, but what do you think about like the concealing to carry, all those laws, because I know that becomes really sticky where it's like people want to blame gun control, this and that. I don't know, what was the difference between here and then in Oklahoma City about carrying, and what are some of the concerns you have about it?
So the laws were pretty different because Oklahoma is an open carry state, which means that you can basically have one on each hip and one strapped on your back and a bandolero, whatever. And here it's very restrictive. I recently did some research, which per capita we actually have fewer violent incidents, gun-related incidents than other states. So you have to ask the question: Is it gun laws? I personally believe that if you are a law-abiding citizen in this state, and you want to apply for a concealed carry permit, then you should have that right to do that. But I also just as strongly believe that if you're a gang member, if you're a convicted felon, if you're a juvenile, if you're somebody who is mentally unstable, you should not have a gun under any circumstances, and we should have the legislation that permits us to take that from you. So two very different situations. Law-abiding citizen who wants to just protect themselves, they should have that right. Violent individuals who have proven they cannot handle that particular right shouldn't have them.
And then maybe this is where the mental health that you were talking about comes in, where we can almost do like a mental health check before you are allowed to have one. Because unfortunately, you don't know until something bad happens that you should not have had.
Right, and the situations that have happened here recently, like Uvalde and in Buffalo, those should be considered. I mean, with those two individuals, should they have any business buying a gun? Should a 17-year-old, 18-year-old be able to go in and buy a high-powered rifle that day? I question that. I question whether that's a good idea, and I'll say it's a bad idea.
Oh, those are definitely important things to consider. What do you guys train now, like here in Fresno? Because a lot of people, well, in Clovis especially, they all carry, guns. They all have that in their house. They all there's a lot of hunters around here and stuff. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I think people should be responsible, and obviously if you have small children like I do, then those weapons are secured, because I don't want them to hurt themselves. So there is a certain level of responsibility. If you're an individual who lives, by themselves, and that's not an issue, well, maybe not so much. But, keep in mind that a lot of the guns that wind up in the hands of felons are stolen from homes. So
so that's something to consider about.
Yeah, so some measure of security should be considered.
For sure. So as far as the gangs go here, what do we have in store to try to get this situation under control with all the gang violence and everything? Because you said there's a lot of programs that have been implemented. What are some of the things that you've seen?
Well, on that aspect, it isn't a one-size-fits-all. Okay, you don't have to look very far in the headlines, and even on our social media pages, what we have been doing. And given that right now homicides are down by 30% with a 92% clearance rate, which means solvability of these crimes, and a 25% reduction in shootings, well, then we need to keep on doing exactly what we've been doing, and those are large-scale operations, partnerships with our federal partners to conduct more of these gang sweeps, violent offender sweeps, wires, everything. So we're going to keep on doing that, and I've said that openly because I do believe getting guns off the streets makes our community safer, and I do feel that I know that the numbers prove it, that arresting violent offenders and sending them to prison does work. But that's not the only solution. We also have to provide more opportunities, both or mentoring opportunities, career opportunities, educational opportunities to our young people. So I think that's something that's lacking. But the city is working very proactively to look at what alternatives we have. We can't just address this on the back end, down the stream when somebody's committed a violent act. Look, we're pretty good at handling those cases, but it's so much better to prevent them. So we also have to look at them from the front end. Give people the resources they need to have the best opportunities in their life instead of ignoring them.
Well, how are we providing? Because I know it's like a catch-22. A lot of people will go, they're told to commit crime. Once you're in deep, like in these gangs, you know, you get out of jail for whatever, and then they're like, you better go do this. I mean, at some point, the gang that they're in, it becomes more scarier than getting caught by law enforcement. And
Yeah.
they rather, it's like a life or death thing. So what do we do in that situation? Or is that not really that realistic of a situation?
Well, you know, I think prevention is the number one key. But secondly, providing those opportunities. And a lot of these kids, a lot of the youth that are in gangs have been brainwashed.
Right.
You know, I talked to one reformed gang member who's a great advocate now, who said, you know, I was brainwashed. I was told that I should hate and I should murder this other guy that lives on the street that looks exactly like me. For a street that I don't own. I don't have any stake in the street. So that makes a terrible amount of sense to me. So if our youth are being brainwashed, then we have to give them other opportunities. Some of these kids have never even considered going to college, finishing high school, going to college, having a career, you know, getting a pension, you know, giving back to their community through a nonprofit civic work. That's not even a reality for them. So we need to make it a reality by showing them those possibilities and those opportunities.
Do you think we do? I mean, because sometimes when you have a felony on your record, it's kind of hard to get those types of jobs where you're able to. So do you think that we've taken the good measures to where that is a possibility if they have a felony?
So I think a good reentry plan is very critical. And you know, one of the things that alarms me is the fact that sometimes we pride ourselves on closing prisons, but if we're letting everybody out early, are we really reducing the prison population in a genuine way? You know, that's not too different from me as police chief saying,
like
hey,
the AB 109 law would be like.
Right. So, you know, what's the difference between a police chief saying, hey, we're no longer going to respond to armed robberies, and then a year later, me touting the fact that, hey, I reduced armed robberies by 100%. Well, I'm not responding to them anymore. That's kind of the same thing. You're fabricating the information. I think you have to have accountability for violent offenders. Violent offenders need to know that if they mess up, if they hurt somebody, if they kill somebody, if they shoot somebody, if they stab somebody, if they rape somebody, they're going to go to prison for a long time. And then before they're let out, there's some type of a reentry plan. You know, job certification, career skills, a place, you know, where they're going to have to be accountable. And we know that those programs work, but nobody wants that accountability. And that's the flaw in the system, that they expect police departments to lower violent crime, but yet the state is not supporting that through programs, through reentry programs, through let's set people up for success instead of failure.
Yeah, a lot of them don't even know what's available to them, that they can do these jobs.
And if you just kick them out of prison without a support system, they're going to go right back to what they were doing before.
So that's something that you're kind of geared towards changing here or helping in the back.
Well, you know, I'm the police chief of Fresno, California. You know, I'm not the you know, the governor.
Well, I like that you're working though with a lot of these people. Like you said, you're working with a lot of programs. You're working with also, I think that's a good step in that direction to be like, to offering resources, because you're all about finding those resources.
Yeah, definitely. We have to partner. There's a lot of great organizations, but you know, at some point we have to stop blaming the police for everything.
Right.
And you know, as police chief, I will always be the most convenient and the easiest scapegoat in the community. And no, that's not fair, but I knew that the job wasn't fair to begin with.
Right.
But at some point, we have to stop blaming police for all the ills of society, because that's not on us. And just like a lot of the responsibilities, such as mental health and homelessness, was put on us when it never should have been because there were no other services, we got to stop blaming the police, because I'm holding my police department accountable, but I think citizens need to hold themselves accountable too. They need to hold their children accountable, and they need to do the right thing.
So on that note, what can we as a community do to help you guys? What can just somebody like me, the housewife that's watching right now, what can we do to help in all these situations?
Being supportive is kind of a big deal. I just finished my budget presentation, and you know, we have a very dynamic city council, but I can honestly say that I have a good working relationship with each and every one of them. And that is special, especially here in California, where a city council is very supportive of their police chief. So I don't have an easy job. I didn't ask for an easy job.
I think we know that. And it's a hard job.
If it was easy, I wouldn't like it anyway. But it is challenging. But having that support makes things a lot easier. Having the support from the community, giving me a little. Again, I'm not from here. Okay, whatever history is here, whatever dynamics, whatever lack of trust, I wasn't part of any of that because I've been here for 18 months. So give me after 18 months, give me the benefit of the doubt that we're going in the right direction, that we're making the right decisions to make this community better. So give me that support, and that can come in a lot of different ways. Obviously support through the city council, but also support with some of the programs that we're doing. I have something called the Chiefs Foundation, where we use that nonprofit to do a lot of great things. I can use it for equipment, I can use it for training, I can use it to help somebody in need. I can use it to support some of our other nonprofits around the city. So support that. We have the Police Activities League. One of our crown jewels of the police department, which is a partnership where we do sporting activities for kids in at-risk communities. Well, that's important. I believe in sports. We know all the statistics show if they have a good coach, a good mentor, and they're doing sports, they're going to get in less trouble. So,
and they're taking care of between that 5 p.m., 8 p.m. period
absolutely.
when all that stuff's going down.
Yeah, that critical time. So support that. Support that. But I have found that the Fresno community has a lot of wonderful and beautiful people that do want to get involved and they do want to help. And for all the occasional naysayers on Twitter or whatever else, they're gonna. It doesn't matter if I found the cure to cancer, they're still gonna find some criticism in what we do. But that's like 1%, and the overwhelming community supports the police department. So that's also a good situation to be in.
And then I met you at a Crime Stoppers event. For those who don't know, what do you think about the Crime Stoppers in this area? Oh,
Valley Crime Stoppers is another great organization that people can contribute to, because I can't think of a better opportunity where people want to get involved in reducing violent crime. Well, we use Crime Stoppers to get tips and to solve crimes. We solve all kinds of crimes through Crime Stoppers, through social media, and it's a great avenue to get involved.
So is that another thing that just the average household, whoever is listening right now, should go and
absolutely
and support? And they're very open to the public just coming and helping together. Right?
Absolutely. That's a great organization. I'm very impressed with the leadership in that organization. I was very relieved because we had a very strong Crime Stoppers program in Oklahoma City. I came here, and it's not just for the city. It is valley-wide. It's the Valley Crime Stoppers, but about 70 to 90% of the tips and the cases are Fresno cases. So it's directly impacting this community. But we also have a very strong, Fresno Sheriff and Chiefs Association, which I'm a part of, where all of law enforcement here support each other, and we help each other when tragedy strikes. But we're one big team, and that's also a great organization that I'm happy to be proud of.
So do you work closely with the Clovis Police Chief and the different? Do you guys work closely together?
We do. Yeah. The Clovis Police Chief was actually on one of my hiring boards. There was, forget how many.
Oh wow.
But no, he's a great individual. He's former Fresno Police. But he's a great chief that's doing amazing things in his community. And although Clovis is a little bit more affluent, they're still short on officers. Their per capita is way off, and they need a lot more officers. And we're directly connected because we're literally Fresno surrounds Clovis. So the issues that affect me affect him. But we work in a strong partnership, not just with Clovis, but with the Fresno County Sheriff's Office and all the surrounding agencies. I consider them all big supporters and friends, and that's just, as I like to say, that's how we roll here in the Valley. It's just we just support one another.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show today. You answered so many questions, and I love what you've been doing for the community so far, and I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
so much for coming on my show today.
You're welcome, Sparkle. Thank you for having me.
When did you start writing this?
In the middle of COVID, when we were all kind of stuck in the house, I sat down and I kind of wrote this book in 8 days. I wanted 13 chapters because Gavin's birthday was May 13th, and it was very easy. I just followed the story, and in 8 days I had the book done, and then I spent 2 years revamping it.
Wow. Okay, so tell our viewers a little bit of backstory on this one.
Okay. My son Gavin, who had been he went to University of Santa Barbara with a degree in environmental science. He was in the Peace Corps and served in the Gambia in West Africa for 2.5 years. When he came back to this country, he knew he wanted to work with children, and I kind of lured him back to work at the River Parkway Conservatory and Trust, and he was with them on and off from 2003 to 2015, and in the middle of all that, they made him head of River Camp, so he decided he wanted to get his credential. He did not have a teaching credential, so he was doing River Camp and was married and had children, and all this time he's working on the credential, and when he finished, he did his student teaching at Buchanan High School in not environmental science, I think general science. And then his first job was at Alta Sierra Junior High School, 7th and 8th grade science teacher, before he got recruited over to Clovis West to be the only AP environmental science teacher in the whole district.
Okay.
And from there, he went across the street to be the vice principal at Fort Washington Elementary.
Wow, and then what a success, and he was a runner. He ran all the time. He's a very active guy.
Yeah, he was practicing for his 3rd marathon. He'd run 1 half and 2 fulls, and 1 full, and he was practicing for the 3rd full marathon. So he was killed on September the 16th, and the marathon wasn't until November.
Of what year?
2018.
Okay.
2018. And the marathon, the Two Cities Marathon, have been wonderful to us. They sponsor a 5K walk run in Gavin's memory every year. And they have just been great to us. So we're out there. Some of us don't run, so I didn't do the things that my son did.
You did the walk.
I did the walk.
Yeah, I can tell you're pretty active too.
Yeah, right. So anyway, the background story is Gavin had been running he went out to run at 5 in the morning. At 6 in the morning, actually at 3 minutes to 6, he was on his way home to get his car so he could meet his buddies to play golf at Eagle Springs Golf Course, and he was struck from behind, flew into the air, hit the ground, and the driver, he was a 6-foot-tall man, so he had a lot of, the car spun in a complete circle. There was glass and blood all over the road, and the driver and his female passenger took off and left him there. He was found, he wasn't found, there were like 3 runners behind him that had been trying to catch up with him. So when he was struck, there was an older woman and 3 younger girls. The older woman ascertained how bad it was. So she said to the young girls, stay here, call the police, call 911, get it on Facebook, do everything you can right now. And she went to Gavin, who was still alive. So the man and woman that hit and run him left him there while he was still alive. And then we later had it confirmed that he did die at the scene when community medical got there. So we lived that horrible, horrible moment that every parent would dread. We were in Southern California. We were coming back. It was 8:15 in the morning, and the phone in the car rings, and it's my daughter, and she says, "Mom, there's been an accident. It's Gavin." And that's all she told us. Besides, don't go home. You've got to come to Community Regional Medical Center. There'll be people waiting for you. Go to the emergency room entrance. And that's all we knew for the next 3 hours. They wouldn't tell us anything.
How old was Gavin?
Gavin was 43, 4 months and 3 days old.
Did they ever find the woman and the man?
Oh my gosh, yeah. We were trying to get a law passed in the state of California to straighten this out. What happened was the man that killed him waited 5 days while the police had 20 warrants looking for him. He turned himself in on the Friday night after he killed Gavin on Sunday, and he was sober. He had no drugs in his system. He presented himself and said, our district attorney, who we absolutely adored, Robert Robinacci, said, "Are you the one that struck Gavin Gladding?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay." Kid walked, the man left, never saw jail that night. And he was free, totally free. There were no reports of any alcohol or any drugs. So they could not charge him with felony manslaughter. They did charge him with felony DUI and several other misdemeanors.
What about the hit and run? That's a crime.
It was a crime, and yes, we got him into jail. He had a lawyer, of course. They appointed a lawyer for him. No, I take that back. He lawyered up and brought the lawyer with him to CHP headquarters.
When he turned himself in?
When he turned himself in. So he had his lawyer with him.
Got it.
And he walked away, and the first time we faced him in court was at the end of October, and the judge actually handcuffed him in front of us and put him in the county jail, waiting for another month to be sentenced. So Gavin is killed in September. The first time we go into the courtroom, it is October. We go back into the courtroom in November when they did sentence him. We all pled for the maximum sentence, which was 4 years for hit and run. The judge saw fit to give him 3 years. He was out and home in 13 months. Then we had to deal with the man who fixed the car. They had struck Gavin right before 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. The car was fixed by 1 o'clock that day.
Wow.
And hidden. And then the girl who had been in the car with him, she had glass all in her hair. He was struck on the passenger side, and the driver was driving a great big navy blue Ford, some kind of big truck, and the rearview mirror is what caught Gavin. He was way up on the berm. He was in the proper place to be running. The man lost control of the car and swerved out and hit him, spun completely around, and took off for Points West and left him there. So we decided that, so we're in court for that one man. The second man we go to court with in March, and he is the one that they called in to fix the truck because he had a lot of connections with who to go to. He walked out of the courtroom before us. They put he got a felony DUI. He got, a felony aiding and abetting.
Okay.
Yeah, and they put a ankle bracelet on him. Goodbye. Not a night, not a minute in jail. And then the girl who was in the front seat with the man that killed Gavin, she didn't get sentenced until May. So we had been from his death in September through all these months to get to May. And she had hired a lawyer, and her lawyer kept asking for more time. And finally, we had 3 different judges, and finally, the judge said on May the 15th of 2019, that's it. Get your story in here. You're gonna be heard today. And he then sentenced the woman in the car to 8 months in jail. She spent 4 months, not jail, not prison. She spent 4 months in jail, and then she was out, done.
What was her, was it aiding and abetting that she got? Okay, so that's what she
They're
had.
all felonies. They're all convicted felonies, whatever they are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say. But no, she spent 4 months, and then she was out, and they, we hear from Assemblyman Jim Patterson. He's going, this is not right. This is not right.
Right.
He could have had the maximum sentence at that point was 2 to 4 years. We, of course, asked for the maximum sentence. He was given 3 years, and it was cut down with however they work that in the prison system,
right,
to 13 months. He was home for the following Christmas, and of course we'll never see Gavin again, and his children won't either.
So what's the law that we're trying to pass now?
The law, and we've been, since 2019, we've been going back and forth to Sacramento. We have to, it is AB, Assembly Bill 582, nicknamed Gavin's Law. We're trying to raise the sentence from 2 to 4 years to 4 to 6 years. That's all, just trying to get it up 2 years. And we were on, it was fabulous. The first time we went in was 19, and we had to pass through the Senate and the Assembly before it went to the governor. So the first Assembly Committee, which is Public Safety, said, we need more time to look at this. So the first time we were there was March 19th of 2019. They sent us home and promised we could come back in January. We did go back, so now we're in January of 20. We go back in January of 20, and we pass through the Public Safety Committee. The next week, we pass through the Appropriations Committee with 8 votes. Jim is there going, these are 8 votes, not, yeah. And then the third week, we went on the Assembly floor, and it was passed 66 in favor and 4 against to raise the sentence from 4 to 6 years. Then COVID hit, everything shut down.
So the delays. Yeah,
we lost all our momentum. And when we got back, and then there was this thing about if your bill was not having something to do with COVID, they weren't going to hear it anyway. And Jim got all around that. So we go in August of 2020, and Susan was escorted, Susan's Gavin's wife, was escorted into the courthouse, the Capitol, alone, taken to a room alone, and she had to stand there and testify to the committee, which was on the floor, of course, in a room below. And this is the first time we were facing the Senate, and we lost by 1 vote.
No way, really?
So this is August of 2020. The Senate, we lost by 1 vote, which negated everything.
Really? You needed that 100%?
But to go forward, we could not have any one of those committees not be in favor.
Oh my God.
So with the one vote, we were out, and we as a family had to decide if we wanted to go back and fight it again in 2021, which we did. I went back by myself, escorted into the Capitol building. It was freaky. It was me and this huge guard. Anyway, I testified. We passed. Again, we're back now at the beginning, so we're at the Assembly Public Safety Committee level. We passed. We go now on to the Appropriations Committee, and they put us, it gets very legally, and they put us in something called the suspense file, which meant that they don't have to hear us. And then the chairman of that committee decided that, which it's her, she has the jurisdiction to say when you come back. So this was in 2021, and she said, and you can't come back till 23.
Because
she can. She has the right to delay that long if she wants to.
So that's the next step, is 2023.
That is exactly right. So now we have to start all over again in 2023, back in the Assembly, back in the Public Safety Committee for round 3. Now, my son was killed in 2018. We're now in the middle of 22. We won't get to go back until sometime in 23. We hope. That hasn't been established as yet. But we want to go back. We want to get Gavin's Law passed. And we continually thank Jim Patterson for what he's done for us. So I sat down and I wrote Gavin's story.
I love this. And then, so we can actually listen to it through your words, find out more about how awesome Gavin is. And how, can we help? Is there any way we could write letters? Like, what can viewers do? Besides buy the book, which we will.
Yes, you can buy the book, that's first.
And that goes on sale next week.
Next week, it will be on Amazon.
And it was June 30th, or
Yeah. June 30th.
Next week, it's Gavin's Gone. Gavin Gone.
The book is entitled Gavin Gone, Turning Pain into Purpose to Create a Legacy.
And I commend you for doing this, by the way. It's got to be rough, but this was awesome. You're going to help so many people.
We hope so. We don't want other families to go through what we went through. We've been joined by some other families. I will be at the Women's Conference selling this book.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I will. I was lucky enough to fall into a booth there. It's an awareness. We are trying to make the state of California aware of what is going on. This man was killed. The man who killed him turned around, ran off, waited, dried up, sober, whatever, came back and suffered, 13 months in prison. And he's now out, living his own life.
Well, that's what me and the police chief were just talking about. I mean, these crimes, it's staggering how this is happening.
I said as the police chief was going out, I said, oh, you'll be hearing from me. Because we worked with Police Chief Dyer a lot. He was at the runs when the Two-City Marathon did the runs for Gavin, which this will be the third one because they got canceled because of COVID. He was out there and he stood with our group as we took off. So,
so I wanted to end on, so can we write letters, and who do we write letters to? If a lot of people read this story, they're supportive, who can we write letters to?
Start with Jim Patterson. Assemblyman Jim Patterson. He's got a Fresno office.
So he can deliver it to the right.
So he can deliver it.
Because we already know he's in favor of this. We want to hit that woman.
He wrote the bill.
We want to hit that woman up that has delayed this, but
she retired.
Oh,
she's
God.
gone. So
convenient.
It was, yeah. Anyway, yes, we can. We had 10,000 signatures on a petition that we circulated around before the first time we went to the Public Safety Committee in 2019. 10,000 signatures in favor of passing AB 582.
But do we need that now? Can we do that now, or we can't? So we can still sign?
We'll have to start it again. We'll work it out.
Okay.
We'll have another petition going around.
So what's your, are you active on social media like Facebook, Instagram? So you'll let us know what we can, you're going to keep us posted. So what is your, what's your social media?
Facebook.
Facebook. So what do we look up? Just
Rita Gladding.
Just Rita Gladding, and you'll. So yeah, we want to keep posted. I will sign. Tell me where to sign. And then what about this? Where can we get this?
This is that is a one of a kind. When Gavin was killed, he was very close to so many students, and one of the mothers of one of the students started collecting letters from his students that they sent in about him. That is 94 pages of letters written by students about when they heard that he had been killed.
Oh my! And can we get this? It's open to the public. But you'll have this at the women's conference, and we can look at it.
Yes, I will. I will.
Okay.
There are actually 3 copies in existence. I have one. My daughter has one.
Thank you so much for bringing this today. This is really special.
And if you look through, he funded a grant, had a grant funded, and took 8 students to Costa Rica. He was an AP environmental science teacher. They're in a raft in Costa Rica. This is a gal he wrote a letter to Notre Dame for to get her help.
Did she get in?
Oh, she's in.
Oh my.
She's in. Oh yeah. So
what a good-looking guy.
And then we have that.
How old are his children now?
They are 12 and 14.
You will be in my purse. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to keep up because I'm all about this petition. If we have to sign letters, right, whatever you got to do, we are on your side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And everybody, buy this on Amazon
June
next
30th,
week.
Gavin,
June 30th,
gone. Come on, guys, let's buy it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sparkle.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh I must confess dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend, playing pretend, playing pretend, ooh, playing pretend.
It's a mystery.